I feel like there's a lot of different pieces, but they all work together.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the High Level Spotlight Sessions, where we showcase awesome marketers doing awesome marketing. Today, I'm joined by Joy Hawkins. She is the founder and CEO of Sterling Sky, which is a digital agency focused on local SEO, Google Ads, and social media. Joy, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
So, Joy, I know that when you go to your site, the list of achievements are pretty impressive. I'm just going to read off a few of them here. So it's like columnist on Search Engine Land, Google My Business product experts, speakers at like PubCon, SMS, writers for Moz, faculty member at Local U. I mean, these are some big time achievements. So how long have you been in SEO?
I was going to say it's taken quite a while. That didn't all happen overnight. So I started in 2006. So I'm having a hard time even doing the math anymore, but it's been a while.
And what got you into it originally? Did you have a business and you were trying to rank it better, or were you helping friends?
No, I was still in college and I was going to school for advertising. So I was trying to just find like a summer job that was somewhat related to what I was studying. And I ended up getting a job actually doing sales for a company that sold Google Ads. And while I was there, Google launched Google Places, which then morphed into Google My Business. And I just started getting obsessed with it because it's all the businesses that I spoke to would talk about. Like they didn't even care about the ads. They were like, whatever, ads or whatever. I want to know how I get listed in this section.
Totally. We were just having this conversation this morning. If you look at Google Trends, like as far as agency services, SEO is the most searched. It's really the holy grail, right? Because hey, if you rank well, you get free leads that come out of Google that you don't have to pay for it. But it's obviously evolved quite a lot over the years. And I would love to chat with you just about sort of the current state of where we're at. I mean, Google My Business has really become such a monster, such an important thing for small businesses, especially. What are you seeing? What are you guys what are you hot on? What are you working with your clients on? What are you advising as far as Google My Business right now?
Yeah, so the way that we approach it, I take a really holistic approach, which I want to say I don't feel like is very common in this industry. Like I meet a lot of companies that either do SEO or they like manage Google My Business, but I feel like there's not a lot of companies that do kind of all of it. So we really are big on like getting traffic from Google. That's what we want to do for our clients. So it's not specific to Google My Business. It's not even specific to like organic. We want them to do ads as well. And I feel like there's a lot of different pieces, but they all work together. So like we will look inside Google My Business Insights and find queries that we never thought about or didn't see like in their Google Ads account. So like sharing some of that information can be really valuable. And they just all work so differently. So I think that's like another thing we hear a lot from business owners. They're like, oh, I rank here. Why don't I rank here? So they think, if I rank organically, I'm automatically going to be in the local pack results or vice versa. And the algorithms are very different. So I think understanding that and knowing how they work is like, that's the big puzzle that I aim to solve.
Yeah. On a personal level, are you frustrated by how much Google My Business is taking over, or is it just a new challenge as far as GMB versus organic?
Yeah, like I think it's challenging. And I think, like I said, like I feel like some people try to master one, but not the other. And I'm like, no, if you have both, if you can master the organic side and Google My Business, that's where I feel like you really start to see results, because there are certain pieces that impact both. Figuring out what those are, how to make them work. Like I love the challenge. So I'm big on like puzzles and stuff.
Nice. We recently, in our platform in HighLevel, rolled out GMB messaging. So the GMB, if you can activate it through our app, and the messages start coming in, and it's super powerful, right? Like I tell the story. I have a friend who has a restaurant. I turned it on. Within 24 hours, the first message came in, and it was like, "How do I buy a gift certificate?" Amazing, right? So, how are you guys going heavy on Google My Business messaging? I mean, what we're hearing from Google is that they're going to start pushing it really hard.
Yeah, it's actually interesting. I've seen an influx in this as a service being offered by like SaaS companies. So it seems to be like the new trend, kind of like I would say reviews were a few years ago. Like everybody was building out review management services, and this seems to be kind of the hot trend. So I do think that more business owners are going to adapt to it now that they don't have to use the stupid app. Because I know like before it was really hard to
Yeah.
convince our customers to activate it because they'd have to download the GMB app on their phone, monitor it
Hmm.
themselves. They couldn't pass it to like a colleague. So that's good for
Exactly.
sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the messaging that we're getting from Google, having been on some of the calls and stuff like that with their dev team and the beta, it was like, we're going to push this really hard, but we're going to monitor it really closely. And if your response rate drops below a certain amount, we'll actually, and we've seen this, they'll deactivate it on your account because you weren't getting back fast enough. So clearly there's going to be this huge emphasis on, hey, communicate with a local business without having to leave the Maps app or the SERP. I think right now it's still just on mobile SERPs, but it's going to come to the desktop. So yeah,
Yeah, it's
definitely.
some features are different. I know like the request a quote button, which runs through messaging, is visible for some business types on desktop, but they keep changing it. So like I didn't even bother to try and figure out what industries have it and which don't, because it's not very consistent.
Well, what about the other new product? Basically, lead ads for Google for Google Ads. Are you guys going heavy on those? Are you bullish on that? What do you think?
Yeah, so we've got a lot of industries that are running them. So like we've got some clients that do like foundation repair, realtors, lawyers, and obviously home services has been around a little longer. But what we are seeing is like for the verticals that have been in it longer, you know, you see this original, exciting, awesome thing. And then when everybody starts signing up for it, it's hard because, you know, there's only 3 ads that show up and then
Mm-hmm.
you want to be in that 3 all the time. And it's like crazy competition. So like we're even seeing this for lawyers already, and it hasn't even been a full year yet. Just like everybody's signing up and like people are starting to skirt around it. We're seeing fake reviews starting to pour in, and it's like, oh,
Mm.
it's insanely competitive. So definitely worth doing, but very tricky. Like it's not one of those things where it should be your single strategy and that's just gonna hand deliver you all the leads you need.
Hmm. Well, you mentioned reviews, and I know I think the latest post on your blog is about, does upvoting a review help it show up higher in Google? What's the answer there?
No. So we've done a bunch of tests on this. Like I watched this one business for like a year and a half or 2 years to see like what would happen and like checking, and we have another one we're monitoring at the moment because I am really interested because the ones that do surface high that are old, there seems to be no rhyme or reason for it, but there is a rhyme or
Hmm.
reason. We just don't know what it is.
Of course, there has to
Um,
be.
yeah, so we're testing all these things, like just clicking on it help, does doing this help, and upvoting was like the most simplistic ones. We started with that, but yeah, it's, you know, it looks nice to have the little upvotes maybe beside, but I had some examples of businesses that went viral and stuff that have like tons of upvotes in that article, so it's pretty clear it doesn't actually impact the order that the review shows
Hmm.
up in.
And did you find anything that actually does? Have you been able to get
Not
hone in on
yet.
anything?
I
That's
think the
interesting.
reason why it's going to be hard to analyze is there's a lot of factors that we don't see. So I don't know if that person called the business first before leaving a review. I don't know if they visited the
Mm.
business and got driving directions using Google Maps, or maybe they visited the business like 6 times. Like I don't know any of that data. So I think it's like there are metrics that Google's likely using that we just don't have access to. So it's never going to make sense.
That makes a lot of sense. That's really interesting. I mean, reviews are something, look, reputation management has been a top service for a very long time, but I think there is so much more to do in reviews. And I love things when it's like, you know, when you're searching for a restaurant, you can search through the reviews for keywords. And I feel like people don't even think about that a lot. Like, do you guys, do you do reputation management as a service or?
So we usually like tell our clients to sign up with like GatherUp or like one of the review sites, but like we don't manage it for them in the sense of setting it all up and stuff for them, because I do feel like there's a lot that the business needs to be involved in when it comes to reviews.
Mhm.
But we'll definitely handle it if they get like a negative review that we think violates Google's terms of service. I've got actually a case open for a big client of ours right now where they got some negative press attention. So we're trying to get a whack load of negative reviews removed for them. So definitely when it comes to that, we assist when we can. But I think like a lot of asking customers for reviews and things like that. Like that has to be done by their in-house team. So we just really strongly encourage our clients to do that.
Gotcha. So what else? I mean, I have to ask you, as somebody who's so deep in the SEO industry, in the game of it, what's hot? What are you guys seeing now? Or is there something new this year that wasn't as big of a factor last year, or something that was a big factor last year that's not as big of a factor this year? What's the latest?
Yeah, so my current obsession is images. I'm just doing a lot of testing to see like what impact images have. And I feel like there's a lot of misinformation out there because people think like, oh, I'm a plumber and I need to upload 100 images of pipes to my Google My Business listing. And it's like, well, no, you don't, because no consumer actually cares about seeing pipes. Like that's not a useful image. But if you were like a jeweler, let's say, and people wanted to see pictures of diamond rings versus emerald rings, then like sure, like it would make sense, or a restaurant. So we're kind of doing some testing right now just to see like, okay, does adding images actually impact where you rank? Does it impact where you rank organically versus in the local pack? I will blow one myth out there that I haven't actually published yet on our blog, but like geotagging photos is something that I've heard for like a decade in this community. And I think it maybe 10 years ago it mattered. I don't know, but it definitely doesn't anymore. But you still see that as like one of the top pieces of advice that people give out in Facebook groups. They're like, geotag your images. I'm like, what a waste of time.
Nice. Have you seen any data on user generated images? I feel like in the restaurant space, that would correlate. Like if more people are posting images, they must think the food's good, right?
Yeah. I mean, so no, I haven't tracked that specifically, but I can say with 100% certainty that click-through rate is a factor. So if that's contributing to how much people are interacting with your listing and stuff, then yes, I would assume that matters.
Very cool. Well, Joy, before I let you go, you've got an event coming up. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so it's in August. We are doing our next Local U Advanced. The sales page isn't up yet, but it should be very soon to sell tickets. And it's going to be virtual. We're sticking with virtual for the rest of this year just to be on the cautious side. But there'll be a lot of really fantastic speakers in the local SEO space. I kind of teased my presentation is all about images, so I'm going to dive into some of those tests I was talking about.
Nice.
But yeah, it's at the end of August.
And what's the URL for that? Is the URL up yet?
You can go to localu.org and it will be there likely by the time people are listening to this.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on to chat, Joy.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks everybody for watching. We will see you in the next one.